Hello everyone. As we all know, we have been celebrating the 75th year of independence this year. This independence we obtained with enormous struggle and strife. It was never a cakewalk as it is mentioned in some of the history textbooks. Most often we get to hear that we got our independence with non-violence and without any bloodshed. But it is not true. Thousands of freedom fighters have shed their sweat and blood to emancipate us from the shackles of subjugation and slavery. So often we have read in history books about the very distinct schism that developed in the Indian freedom struggle of the so called moderates and extremists. But there was one more parallel stream that has gone almost unnoticed and probably also unresearched. So that was the armed conflict, which was a constant buzz going on since the 1857 uprising till 1946 naval mutiny in Bombay. This was proclaimed as a revolutionary movement. The book I am going to introduce you is about a great revolutionary India has ever seen. That is none other than Swatantra Veera Savarkar. It wouldn't be an exaggeration if I say that any study of early Indian revolutionary movement may be incomplete without the study of Veera Savarkar. His writings, his philosophy, his contribution to the Indian freedom struggle is unprecedented. Today, there are numerous books about Savarkar in almost all Indian as well as the foreign languages. The book that I have chosen to introduce you under the Pustaka Priti initiative is a much recent one published in the year 2019. The title of the book is Savarkar Echoes from a Forgotten Past, 1883 to 1924. It is written by a young historian of our times, Vikram Sampath. So, this was published by Penguin Publishers. The second part of this book got published just last month under the title Savarkar A Contested Legacy 1924 to 1966. Both of these books give a detailed and unbiased account of the life and achievement of Vinayak Damodar Savarkar. Vikram Sampath has very well narrated the saga of Savarkar, paying attention to every minute detail owing to his in depth research on Savarkar's life. As Vikram Sampath records in this book, Vinayak Damodar Savarkar was born in a village in Nasik district of Maharashtra on 28th May 1883. He was second of the three sons his parents had. Right from the childhood, Savarkar actually abhorred the caste system despite being an upper caste boy. He always loved to mix with his friends who were from the so called lower castes. He ate with them and he played with them. And besides, he was also an extremely audacious reader, much beyond his age, and simultaneously poetry germinated in him when he was all of 8 years old. And from there, he grew up to be a great Marathi poet as well. When he was 6 years old, he lost his mother to cholera, and very next to this tragedy, there was the scourge of plague in Maharashtra that ravaged different parts of the state. And the British government, in the name of controlling the epidemic, took very repressive measures. Plague infected families were detected, and the police would storm into those houses and evacuate them forcefully and set the houses into fire. This brutality was led out by a British officer named Walter Rand. So, to put a full stop to this cruelty, three brave brothers, famously known as Chapekar brothers, they came forward and they assassinated the monster Rand, who was a nightmare to the plague infected poor people of Maharashtra. Very soon, Chapekar brothers were caught by the British police. The next day, newspapers wrote, "The murderers are caught." Savarkar was just a 14 years old boy then. He was so touched and moved by the way in which these three patriots were treated. For him, they were the heroes who shed their lives for the well being of the fellow citizens. The very day Savarkar took an oath to take revenge against the British and free Bharat from this slavery. Soon after his mother's death, his father also died of plague. All these disorders and diversions did not sway away the young Savarkar from his aim of driving the British away from India. Later, Savarkar became the first person to form India's first ever organized secret society of young revolutionaries when he was just 16 years old. That revolutionary organization was called Mitra Mela, and later it was renamed as Abhinava Bharata. Savarkar started spreading out the branches of Abhinava Bharata by recruiting young Indian students to the revolutionary movement against the British when he was pursuing his bachelor's degree at the very prestigious Fergusson College, Pune. Then, under the recommendation of Balagangadhar Tilak, Savarkar went to London on the pretext of becoming a barrister, but the real intention was to challenge the British Empire in their own land. In London, he gave speeches and wrote books and instigated the elite Indian students to revolt against the British. Hundreds of young Indian men took oath to free India from the clutches of British. A 17-year-old boy, Ananta Lakshmana Kanere, and the great Madanlal Dhingra assassinated the cruel British officers inspired by the words of Savarkar. At last, the British realized that the kingpin of this whole thing was Savarkar and arrested him with multiple charges on him. He was sent to India from London on a ship called SS Maria with a tight surveillance on him. You will be thrilled to read this incident in the book about what level of bravery Savarkar exhibited during that time. He never wanted to surrender to the British authority, so he planned to jump from the ship and escape despite the tight police security. On the pretext of going to the toilet, he managed to open the toilet window and pushed his body through that small space and jumped into the ocean and started swimming towards the French coast. So he reached the French territory by swimming, but unfortunately, the British police bribed the French authority and again arrested Savarkar and sent him to the notorious cellular jail of Andaman with 2 lifetime imprisonment. Savarkar was the first ever person to receive the 25 years 2 lifetime imprisonments. He was jailed in the year 1910 and he was supposed to be released in the year 1960. If you read it in detail, the inhuman punishment that Savarkar was given in Andaman jail, you will be in tears. 6 months of solitary confinement without human contact, constantly being handcuffed and standing facing the wall. All sorts of torture he had to go through, along with several other revolutionaries, including his brother Baba Rao Savarkar. Though both the brothers were in the same jail, they were never allowed to see each other. Many people committed suicide without being able to bear this torture in Andaman, and many prisoners went mad in this cruel condition. Savarkar survived in midst of all these torture. He never lost his courage as he was mentally prepared for all these. In one of his poems, he says, "Ki ghetale vrata nahi ami andhatene, labdha prakasha itihasa nisargamane." It means the decision of plunging into the freedom struggle was not blindly taken, but under the bright light obtained from the study of history. Savarkar was a man with a multifaceted personality. He was a poet, orator, writer, revolutionary, organizer, social reformer, and whatnot. When the Indian political leadership did not even have the intellectual ability to seek for complete independence, it was Savarkar in 1900 who was the first person to articulate complete independence or Purna Swarajya. A few decades before the bonfire was set, it was Savarkar who did the burning of British goods, and he was the first progenitor of Swadeshi movement. Savarkar, at the he was at the forefront when it came to eradicate the caste-based discrimination. He was one of the pioneering figures to oppose untouchability and propagate intercaste dining and intercaste marriage. Savarkar is the first and last poet in the history of world literature to compose more than 10,000 verses without a pen or paper and only using nails on the walls of Andaman jail. There is no other person in the history of British Empire or any challenger to the hegemonic imperialistic supremacy of the British like Savarkar. No challenger was even ever given a consecutive 2 lifetime sentences. It was only Savarkar who got 25 years, 2 lifetime sentences. Savarkar was the first ever graduated person to be snatched off his awarded barrister degree and bachelor's degree by the British authority. Savarkar was the first ever author to be banned by the British government even before the publication of his monumental works. And Savarkar was the first ever person to call the 1857 revolt as the first war of Indian independence. This brave son of India was ill treated by some of the Indians too after the independence for their filthy political reasons, and that was very unfortunate. Savarkar was fixed in the case of Mahatma Gandhi's assassination for mere political rivalry. Fortunately, the court passed the verdict strongly opining that Savarkar has no role in Gandhiji's assassination and ordered the Indian government to release Savarkar with honor. So today, some bunch of idiots try to defame Savarkar, saying that he wrote mercy petitions to the British to release him. Hence, he is a coward. But these people don't know who did Savarkar really take his inspirations from. Lord Sri Krishna and Chhatrapati Shivaji were his inspirations. They too had some stealthy ways to fool their enemies. Savarkar wrote petitions only to escape from the prison and again start back his actions. This fact these critics don't know, but the British knew this very well, that Savarkar is the most dangerous threat to their government. The British officers who they revived Savarkar's petition and said that Savarkar was not at all sorry for whatever he has done against the British, and it would be a disaster if we release him. The British were shit scared about this great son of India. Savarkar is the hero for the lion-hearted patriots because it takes inherent strength in character to like Savarkar. So here in this historical book, Vikram Sampath has been successful in looking at the history as it is, and without being and without any ideological lens or a personal prejudice. So I insist every one of you to read this book, which is in 2 volumes, or any other authentic book on Savarkar in your convenient language. If we read Savarkar, Savarkar will continue to inspire us. Savarkar will continue to fire our imagination, and Savarkar, the patriot, will touch our heart, and Savarkar, the writer, will touch our minds, and Savarkar, the nationalist, will inspire us to do our best to for the country. So thank you so much.